We are particularly interested in your Sodor and Mainland Railways, numbers 1 and 2.
Let's go! Yippee! This is amazing! Vales Bridge.
James the Red Engine has lived and worked on the North Western Railway on the island of Sodor for many years, and there is nowhere else he'd rather be. Like Henry, he too is a mixed traffic engine, although he mainly prefers passengers over freight. One morning, Henry was still tired after taking the flying kipper. Gordon was away in England, and so Henry wasn't ready to take the express. Arnold and Winston double-headed the express, while James pulled Arnold's goods. The journey went very well. James made good time with the train, but just as he was coming into Crovan's gate, he felt something loosen near his wheels. Suddenly, the red engine yelped in pain.
Ouch!
And his driver braked him gently to a stop.
Ah! Ah!
He and the fireman inspected him all over.
One of your sorrows snapped, James. It was the bloomin' hill climb that happened. That's what it is.
What will Glenn say?
Turns out it wasn't much. He arrived with Fowler and the breakdown crane, and he was disappointed, but not with James.
This wasn't your fault. Something like this was bound to happen. It's about time you visited the works. Yes, sir.
Fowler shunted James into the works, where repairs would begin on him. Don't worry, my dear. Could be worse.
How could it be worse? 1 minute I'm being my splendid and really useful self, but now this.
All that was on James's mind was what the other engines would say and think of this incident. He and Glenn knew it wasn't his fault, but he still had his doubts. Normally, he would often be teased and laughed at by the other engines, or so he thought. Fowler had been on the railway for a good 50 years, but was still fairly new to goods work. To earn more experience, he was more than glad to cover James's work. When Gordon returned home, he saw Fowler in James's berth. Where's James? After getting over their LMS and LNER rivalry, the big blue engine started to have a great respect for Fowler, as for a tender engine his size, he was rugged and hard-working. When the Patriot told of James's broken side rod, Gordon couldn't resist the temptation to make a cutting remark. Ha ha ha! That would never happen to you or me. We are the most reliable engines on this railway.
That's not true. I remember when one of my crank pins broke, and I managed to get my passengers home.
I thought you did very well, Liquid. You've shown time and time again how really useful you can be, because you care so much about the trains.
The same way Gordon cares for the express. Well, I'm glad you're staying at our sheds while James is away. It'll be quite nice to talk with you each night.
Well, what about me?
Yes, you too, Edward. Two days later, Glenn came to see Fowler in the yard.
You've been doing well with looking after James's passengers, But today I need you to pull a slow goods train. It starts at Vickerstown and makes its way back here. Can you do that for me?
Does it stop at every station?
Yes, it does.
Just checking. Yes, sir, nothing I can't handle.
Excellent. I'll see you later.
Morning, Philip. Is my goods train ready? Ah! I'm not that frightening, am I? Sorry about that, Fowler. He's, suffering the effects of seeing that, the old station being blown up right in front of him. I heard about that. Poor Jason, Connor and Paxton. Speaking of which, how are you two managing with all of this? I don't know. I'm now the lead pilot in the yard, but it doesn't feel right. Philip isn't much use either due to his PTSD. He does good work though, when he's only around me. Every time a workman or the yard manager walks up to talk to him, he runs away. I see. Is this my goods train, by the way? Yes, it is. I'm going to head off now. I need to take some trucks down to the port. Okay, thanks. Take care, Ryan. You too. Fowler made good time with the train, picking up and dropping off wagons as he puffed down the line. The trucks proved no trouble for him at all was going rather well, except for some faulty points. Fowler crossed the junction at Marin just as Wilbert the signalman was about to change the points back for Gordon's Express when something went wrong. He saw Fowler pass his box on the express line and walked out onto the staircase to get a closer look.
The points are jammed.
And as he went back inside the box to fetch some detonators to put on the rails, he heard a familiar whistle.
Oh, heck. It's Gordon at the Express.
Before he could run back downstairs to try and stop Gordon, the big blue engine rushed past, unaware that Fowler had been put on his line due to point failure.
There'll be a wreck for sure.
Fowler was making his way up Gordon's Hill with the train. The train wasn't too heavy, but the Patriot managed to climb steadily up to the top. Almost there. He was just reaching the top when he heard a whistle. Gordon was making his way up the hill when he saw a goods train on my line too. Sorry, Gordon, I was switched on to this line. Oh, the indignity. Gordon buffered up to the brake van and started to push the train onward. He wasn't going to let it get in the way of his express. Gordon pushed the train with all his might, and both engines managed to haul their trains up the steep hill. When they reached the top, Fowler rushed down and was switched onto the regular up line, allowing Gordon to continue with his express. But the big blue engine was still annoyed about having to push Fowler and pull his train too. They were so busy arguing, they didn't notice they had arrived at Wellsworth, where Edward was patiently waiting with his coaches. I said I was sorry. How could you possibly end up on the express line? People might have been hurt or killed had there been a crash.
True, but the jammed points weren't Fowler's fault, much like James accidentally snapping his coupling rod. Remember?
I never said they were his fault.
From what I heard, James is coming back from the works, and he didn't take kindly to what you said about him.
And?
And I think it's a good idea that you apologize to him. You two have been arguing constantly for over half a century. I speak for the other engines when I say it's highly annoying. And I may not spend every night at Tidmouth, but when I do, you two are all I hear.
Gordon looked down in shame. Yes, I will. Sorry, Edward. Sorry, Fowler. Later in the week, James came back early in the morning from the works, and Gordon remembered what Edward and Fowler had said. James, I know you may have a perfect reason to be mad at me for what I was saying, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm sorry. Edward talked to me about how our arguments ruin every moment he spends with us, and I wanted to end.
Apology accepted. And I'm sorry too.
And I'll give you another shot for my express duties. If you do well, I might talk to Glyn about getting you promoted.
Really? That should be great.
Well done, old boy. Nowadays, Fowler often manages James's slow goods trains, as James has been promoted to occasional express goods and passenger duties, but that is another story. For now, if it's one thing the engines have learned, it's that whatever bad things they have no control over may happen, it's important not to let setbacks get the better of them, nor stop them from doing a good day's work and being really useful. Everything okay up there, Mr. Afton? It's nearly closing time.
Huh? Yeah, I'm fine. This book is quite interesting, considering its age.
I'm assuming you like my historical collection.
Yes, I do. I found this book that I want to buy. It was stuck behind the shelf.
Interesting. Must have been back there since my father ran the shop. What's the date?
Published the 14th of February, 1809. That's 200 years ago, exactly. There's a stamp here that says it arrived in this shop in 1952.
What a coincidence. Well, since it's been here so long, you can have it cheap. £2 and it's yours.
Why, thank you very much. Have a lovely day, Mr. Davies.
You too. By the way, what's the book called? I'll need to write it down in the log that it's been bought.
Sodor, a historical look back on Vales Bridge.